So, good afternoon, Stephanie. Stephanie Barnes, founder of Entelechy, which translates as Realisation of Potential. You're most welcome to the Handshake.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Not at all. I first came across you and your work and your very interesting work during our COVID-19 lockdown period. And we chatted on asking the hard questions. And I'm thrilled to have you back now on the Handshake.
Thanks.
So, on the handshake, my questions tap into that sort of symbolic power of the handshake while encouraging a deep reflection on how AI and your idea of RKM, radical knowledge management, can coexist to help humans achieve their full potential in both professional and education settings. But I came across a beautiful quote from your website from the book Creative Company, which you edited. You edited the English version. And I'll just quote it to you. I think it gets you in one. All of a sudden, we saw that people who had a connection to art, who were active in the arts, could consciously or unconsciously develop that connection into an advantage in dealing with complexity and dynamics. They were curious, had fewer prejudices, and could empathize easily with others. They were very creative and capable of handling uncertainty, complexity, and mistakes. I think that this quotation actually captures what Entelechy is all about. Would you like to chat to us a little on that?
Sure. How long do you have? Yeah, I think we've done ourselves this disservice. Focusing on the technology and the process, and I am an accountant and have an MBA, by education and things, and those are valuable tools. That process thinking, that detail thinking is useful for sure, but we've done ourselves a real disservice by saying that the arts and creativity is something for special people. It's not suitable for work, and I think that bringing that back not only helps us realize our own potential, but also helps us use these tools much better, because we're asking different questions. The chat GPT and the large language models all rely on chat engineering. Well, that's got to be founded in curiosity. Well, so how do you become curious if if curiosity isn't one of your strengths? And even for those that are, you need to do things to build it and to maintain it and to keep it bubbling, keep the questions coming. And so how do you do that? By arts and creativity, by tapping into that, by giving yourself the space to think and reflect and let your brain go off into this diffuse thinking mode instead of all the focused thinking mode. And I don't want to get too buried in the neuroscience of all this, but
it hints at an awful lot of my ideas in relation to AI. And I often argue that it's my age group maybe and the generation behind me who can best utilize AI as the tool. I worry about the digital natives who come in and have AI thrown at them before their own organic creativity, etc., has been molded and shaped. And that, I'm sure, is an argument for another day. But I think unless educators get in there and realize this, we're in trouble as is.
We are, because AI just pulls from whatever it's been trained on,
Sure.
and not the wider body of knowledge that exists that hasn't been used to train the AI, but that it won't go outside that bubble that it's been trained on. So if it's only trained on a subset, like there's a whole bunch of other possibilities out there, not to mention the possibilities that don't exist, and so this is a concern that we're continually narrowing the pool of possible solutions to any problems we might be trying to solve, when the reality is we should be going bigger and going broader. And how do you do that? Art and creativity.
Sure. So the handshake is a universal symbol of connection and trust. Now, in the age where AI mediates many of these interactions, how do you see RKM preserving the essence of that human handshake in knowledge sharing and collaboration, etc.?
Using radical knowledge management, the tools and the things that I advocate in that framework, that methodology, allows, it's about the humans, about connecting humans, there's an aspect of it that's team building and trust building. There's an aspect of it that's sort of self-awareness and self-knowledge, and how do you communicate with people, and how do you work with people, and how do you collaborate? I think I said collaborate twice, but it's that. And so it works through this individual level to the group level to the organizational level. When we get to the organizational level, we're looking at leadership, we're looking at more decision making, we're looking at the impact on the outside world. And again, this understanding the interconnectedness of things is something that we've taken away from people in focusing on the details and the technology and the process and the analytic part of the equation, rather than looking at the whole equation of both the creative and the analytical.
I suppose the power bank of money that runs alongside technology is its driving force, that at times can drown out other thinking.
Yeah, money is
So do you think that AI can ever replicate the depth of human connection that a simple handshake represents, or will this remain uniquely human?
That's uniquely human. AI is not. AI is a tool, and that's all. We've given it, because it generates these answers that somehow look human, and sort of masquerade as human.
I like that word. Yeah.
We've given it this, persona.
We're attaching too much importance to it.
Yeah, and when all it really is predictive text. So it's looking at, it's a very complex system, certainly in the algorithms and how it creates things, but it's just looking at word patterns. It doesn't understand things the way that you and I understand things, the way that humans understand things. It has no compassion. It has no empathy. It's told people that they should kill themselves. It's created all kind, because it masquerades as this human thing or human-like thing. People have mistaken it for a human being and have built this relationship with it, that then it's gone and said something that made no sense to them, and they've had to go and get therapy because they're so devastated that this human-like thing that they've personified has said their name wrong or called them the wrong name, and they don't understand that this is just some algorithm.
So we're going to reach a point where we're going to find it very difficult to distinguish between what's real and what's fake.
Oh, I think we're there. I think we're there now, at least for some people, that can't distinguish or don't want to distinguish, don't want to take the effort and the critical thinking to distinguish. I think for sure that we're there, in some respects.
So the next 10 years are vital, really, in terms of establishing AI as the tool as opposed to the master, and holding on to and celebrating what it means to be human. And that human connection.
Yeah. And so this is what I'm trying to do with Radical KM is bring back the humanity, bring back that the emotion and that connection, our intuition, our empathy, our compassion, and get us out of that. Oh, I've got to, where's my phone? I got to, ask ChatGPT. Why are you asking ChatGPT? Just, what's the answer? ChatGPT is, anyway.
Yeah.
Stop ranting.
So I'm the CEO of a big up and coming firm, and we do a lot of our we're immersed in technology, and I note a chasm developing between even the generations in my workspace.
Sure.
And due to the hybrid work model, etc., I think we're sort of falling apart in many ways in terms of connection. So I decide I'm going to get Stephanie in to do some work with me, well, with my people. So take me on the journey. You arrive. What do you do? How do you introduce the idea? What obstacles do you come up against with these people that you meet? And how do you actually bring them back down to ground?
So we leave when, well, I was going to say we leave the technology aside for a couple of hours, but I actually do a lot of work online and virtually through Zoom. So we can't leave it total, and it works actually really nicely because it allows us to break the sessions up into a couple of hours a week so that we create some new habits and have some new experiences that we can't have, or at least can't have the same way when people are spread around the globe. And there's no reason why, it's nice to have everybody in person. It is, there's no question about that. But being distributed and doing this work in that way also has some benefits, and as long as you're purposeful and thoughtful about how you're doing it. So when I go into an organization, it is often that we're working on distributed, people are around the world. And so we're doing, 2 hours a week, let's say, of creative activity and using different arts-based interventions like improv or painting or drawing or photography or, any number of things. I have quite a wide definition of arts-based interventions. And so we go and we're using these tools and having these conversations, and we're experimenting and we're getting to know each other, and we're having, even if we're not co-located, we're having a shared experience. And we're breaking down some of those walls, and we're getting to know each other and see what each other is doing and what each other is thinking, and really discovering within ourselves, becoming more self-aware of, oh, you know what, I'm feeling tired. I need to step away from my desk for a few minutes. I need to, clear my head and get some air. I need to do something that gives me some energy. And we move from an individual, what do I need, to what does the group need? And part of it's about psychological safety, and which is not becoming psychological safety, unfortunately, is becoming a bit of a dirty word because it's being interpreted as everybody says the same thing. Everybody agrees. There's no disagreement, which is not what it means. Psychological safety means being safe to disagree, to have those difficult conversations without repercussions. So you can have those difficult conversations and find the middle ground. It's not about coercing someone into your way of thinking or manipulating them into your way of thinking. No, it's about saying, you believe X and I believe Y, what's
can
common,
coexist.
And find the common ground. And all too often we get, embedded in our positions and don't actually listen to the other people. So this is part of what I do, and we use improv and some other activities for doing that, and role playing things, and for really tuning into that, finding the comfort, and the courage, the bravery, if you want to call it that, to have those difficult conversations, and to be uncomfortable and go, oh, okay, I'm gonna feel the fear and do it anyway, right? That's the phrase.
So RKM in action really breaks down barriers, and it brings people back into the space with the freedom to express themselves without fear.
Yeah.
And if you were to give me a blank canvas and the three primary colors, what challenge would you put to me?
Oh, I would ask you to paint. Listen to your intuition, if you want to call it your heart, your soul. Listen to the voice in your head and paint. What color do you feel like? What tool do you feel like using? How do you want to spread the paint on the canvas? Do you want to mix them? And just, I would encourage you just to experiment and see what you could create.
And to the tech savvy executive who's not used to this, do you find a great hesitancy initially for them in doing that?
Yes, there is. People that get buried, caught up in their head. There's definitely a hesitancy to this. This is different than they were taught at school, than anybody was taught in school, or at least the most people were taught in school. And yet, it's also really interesting that so often I get into organizations and find that people have some kind of artistic or creative activity in their background, whether it's music, or whether it's painting or drawing or photography or theater, that they have something that they do on the side, quietly, that nobody knows about. So many people are somehow relieved that, oh, I can use this at work and it's okay. So there's that, that permission. But for the ones that are really caught up in their heads and are saying, no, we don't do that here. We're all about the analytics and the numbers and the ROI here. Like, let's have an experience. I challenge them, let's have an experience and see what happens. Because quite honestly, and I know this sounds a little woo woo, magic happens when we give ourselves a space to experiment and be curious and see what happens. New ideas come out, new ways to solve problems come out, new connections are made when we have these shared experiences. There's all kinds of magic that happens, and we don't know what it is until it actually happens. So usually what happens is, if I can convince them, or when I can convince them to do the actual activities, they see the benefits because they've experienced it. It's experiential. It's not something that you can think your way through. Although there's lots of science, and particularly lots of neuroscience, that backs up the benefits of arts. So the science is there, the data is there, but the problem isn't the lack of data. The problem isn't the lack of science. The problem is the stories that people have been told about. No, we're all about analytics here. We're all about the numbers, and ignore that. And yet productivity actually increases by using arts.
Which leads to another question I have here. How can we reconcile the drive for productivity with the slower, more reflective processes of RKM that you advocate?
We need to get ourselves out of this industrial age thinking that's very production line, very focused on speeding up the production line, and recognize that we're not on a production line creating cars. We're knowledge workers, and the way to speed up knowledge work is to actually slow down and be reflective and give our brains time to think and to reflect, and give them the space to problem solve, because it's doing things while we don't even know that it's doing things. This is why people people say this all the time, have the best ideas in the showers, or they'll go for a run and come back with a solution to a problem. Or you wake up in the morning or the middle of the night and go, oh, I know how I'm going to solve that problem.
Yes.
So our brains need that downtime, that unfocused thinking time to work their magic and find the solution.
I think the pace and intensity of change that's coming at the organizational world these days, that sometimes the noise created by that occludes the organic creativity within the human, and they don't get time to catch their breath.
No, they don't. And we've got so many notifications going off all the time on our phones. Turn the notifications off. So there's very few notifications that get through in my phone. And it's generally stuff that's life or death, or maybe not life or death, but important. It's not the so and so posted on LinkedIn. It's not here's the latest WhatsApp message. It's stuff. It's human. It's the human stuff.
We are so distracted by this device, and by we're nearly programmed. And the separation anxiety that occurs even with our youngsters, if you take the device from them, there's a real body of work there to be done on taming that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I read an article a couple of months ago now, I think in The Guardian, but I'm not sure, that was about this woman that had taken her kids out, her teenagers, 14, 15 years old, taken them out and left them on a campsite for 36 hours without their phones. And and the first few hours were a bit tricky, and then they got used to it and built a fire and did a camp out and slept in their sleeping bags and did whatever 15-year-olds might do on a camping trip, and they came back refreshed and realizing just what they had been missing. And yeah, it was uncomfortable for the first few hours, and then they actually started to talk to each other and goof around and laugh and joke around, and have fun and be
Get to know each
15-year-olds.
other. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have a theory, that we really should be teaching our children survival skills as part of their education.
We should be teaching our children a lot of things that we're not teaching them. And
Mm-hmm.
the things we should be teaching them have nothing to do with technology.
So you talked to me a little bit about that, how doing the same old, as you say, won't help us in today's world. As AI increasingly takes over repetitive tasks, where should humans focus their energy to ensure that we continue to innovate and grow?
Outside of of the repetitive tasks, let AI, let the technology do what the technology does, and we're never going to beat that, and that's fine. But then let's make sure that we are being creative and innovative. Let's strengthen our relational skills. Let's strengthen our interpersonal skills. Let's strengthen our creativity, which is not something that AI does or can do. And yes, it generates these pictures and things that people often end up with extra arms and legs and fingers and things, but real art, and that's an expression of the human soul, which is one of my definitions of art. But it's AI needs the input from us because it's a garbage in, garbage out, and so it needs humans to be feeding it real information, real data, and not being fed it's the stuff that's got six hands, on a person. And
so I note you use the word soul, that delineating factor between the human and the machine, that notion of soul and the uniqueness of each human. I often fear that maybe an overdependence too early on technology among the young may render them lazy. So there is a big onus on educators to ensure that that doesn't happen, and on parents, obviously, parenting in the home.
yeah, I think there's a laziness issue, and I'm not sure that I would call it a laziness necessarily. I think there's an unawareness of or lack of critical thinking, that there's a different way to do it. They've been taught that, oh, this device gives them the answers that they need, and the truth is it doesn't. It just pulls from a very limited pool of data, of information, and so they need to learn that there is a bigger pool that this thing doesn't have access to.
So cast your mind forward maybe to 10 years' time when children are being microchipped for convenience, and it's been sold to us as a wonderful way of access to our medical records, etc. Should anything happen to us when we're out and about and people need to come to our aid, but they can just tap into that little chip and get all the information on us. How do you feel about that on every level?
Not good. Something I would be bypassing. And it has this altruistic, oh, we are health records. Well, who could deny, having access to health records? But there are other less positive things that happen
You're
with this.
hitting on the ethics of the whole thing, yeah?
Yeah, and so there's not everyone has positive motives to do this stuff. So, and once the microchip's there, once you're being tracked, then there's other things that happen as
As a
well, we
byproduct.
could say unintended consequence, but we can, there's other possibilities once the technology is there. So, which is why it's important, I think, to leave the devices at home, for go on.
And to hold on to and develop our own agency.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Maintain our agency. Step away from the device.
Yeah. So, how do you see RKM and AI coexisting to nurture not just knowledge acquisition, but also the creative and emotional intelligence students need to reach their potential?
I think just, helping the children, helping the students, helping the adults as far as that goes, be the best person that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And the best is not a technological thing. The best isn't a data point. It's not an analog. It's not an analytical thing. It's a well-rounded, balanced human being that has agency, that has their own sovereignty, that is courageous and brave and understands the consequences of their actions. And so I hope that by using arts-based interventions and radical KM and that those things that back up why I put it all together or support that thinking helps people become the realize their potential as human beings, not as some kind of biological robot.
Yeah. So, take me back to that workspace. What have been the most outstanding outcomes that verify for you that RKM is the root?
Oh, just the problem solving that happens, the innovation that happens, the personal growth and development that happens. And I think I probably told you this story when we did the other recording a couple of years ago. The guy that came to the workshop, this is before the pandemic, so it was an in-person workshop, and was so upset he got brown in his yellow, and we were doing this painting activity and in this 2-day workshop, and and then we had this whole conversation, and I convince him or help him to embrace the brown and the yellow, that it's there, and anything he might do to try and fix it or remove it is just going to make the whole thing worse. And so embrace it. And how do you, the question I put to him at the end of the freak out about the brown and the yellow was think about how you want to incorporate it, because it's there now. And so by the end of the second day of the workshop, so 3 more rounds of painting, he's got this painting that he was in love with and took it home and helped, put it up on his living room wall. And he called that whole process magic, because I didn't yell at him. I didn't give him a hard time. I didn't tease and belittle him because he got brown in the yellow. I initially, commiserated with him and said, "Oh, that sucks. You got brown in your yellow." And we talked through how to incorporate that, how to embrace it, how to make it part of the painting, to the point where, like I say, on the end of the second day, he has this painting that he's so proud of, he hung up on his living room wall. So that confidence of, oh, the worst can happen. I got brown in my yellow, and I can come out of it with something beautiful.
So he couldn't press delete on the keyboard. He had to work around it.
Yes, which is why I don't use digital painting tools, and why we use actual paint on actual canvases with actual brushes. And
yeah. If I recall rightly, you did say that some companies leave the setup as it physically is and call it their brainstorming room, and they retreat there minus their devices to brainstorm on the issues that come up afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. And using those, this is one of the things about setting up a studio in an office. It encourages people to actually come into the office and make that a worthwhile trip, rather than sitting on Zoom calls in the office. But but setting this up, the studio space up in the office, gives people a place to go. Okay, we're trying to problem solve. We're trying to find a solution to this challenge that we're up against. Let's go and sit in the studio and use some of the art supplies and materials that are there, and work through how we might solve the problem. Basically, we're
Mhm.
thinking with our hands. And so this is, there's different things that happen in our brains, how our brains work when we start not just writing or typing on the
Mhm.
keyboard, but we're actually using our hands to put pieces together and remove pieces.
So it's the kinesthetic, yeah, the kinesthetic, and
Yeah,
also I suppose you've got a strong hint of the transactional that goes
yeah,
on between people as well,
yes,
that
those
can be
conversations.
lost with the dependence on AI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we're securing the knowledge that really AI will never replace the human or can never encapsulate all the beautiful tapestry of emotional intelligence, etc., that we as a species possess.
Yeah, I mean, Roger Penrose says consciousness is not a computation. So
I like that. Say that again.
consciousness is not a
Not
computation.
computation. Very good. That's deep. That's
Yeah,
deep.
yeah.
So I call my company Total Human Capital. So as we strive towards total human capital, what are the key skills and attributes that humans need to focus on developing in order to remain irreplaceable in this AI enveloped world that we're immersed in?
Their creativity, their curiosity, their ability to look at things from different perspectives, to
Mhm.
collect information and put it together in new and innovative ways. Yeah, that the ability to see the interconnectedness of things. That's that. Yeah, that. It's just not. It's not.
It's not facilitated for with AI.
Yeah, it's not the same with
Mm.
AI. It's
Mhm.
there's
So,
a consciousness, anything that
yeah,
builds up their consciousness, their
or
awareness.
yeah, it's RKM invites us to view knowledge workers as humans, not,
For sure.
not
Knowledge is human.
machines. So, in a future where AI handles much of the rote knowledge work, what's left for humans to master in order to stay relevant and to achieve their highest potential?
Knowledge work isn't just the the repetitive daily routine stuff. In fact,
Mm.
it's real knowledge work is very little of that, and is much more of the seeing the patterns and asking questions and problem solving and looking at and being curious about why
Mm.
why is that happening, and it doesn't
Mm.
matter if I'm a doctor or an engineer or an accountant or a help desk person. It's a curiosity of
Mm.
why is this happening. What's Is there a meaning here? Is there something that I'm missing? Why is
Mm.
this problem coming up, or why is this set of symptoms coming up, or whatever it is. It's that curiosity. I think the technology encourages us to be complacent and say,
Mm.
oh well, the technology gave me that answer. i'm not
So
i'm not going to question it. And I think
takes
about,
responsibility, absolutely. Yeah.
we abdicate that, and we do it at our own risk, at our own peril.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know
So, what practical steps would you prescribe to a leader in an organization to foster an environment where the handshake, that symbol of human connection, remains central to their organizational culture?
yeah, I would just encourage people to create the space for that reflection, for that
Mhm.
communication, for that connection, to that.
Mhm.
Knowledge is human, and we need we're humans are, um what's the word I want, are social beings,
Mhm.
and so knowledge is social. And so if we want people to be their best, and organizations to be their best and have that competitive advantage, it's about it's not about using the technology well, although that's part of it. It's about helping the humans be the best that they can be, because the humans are your biggest
Asset.
asset,
Yeah.
the biggest cash outflow, on your balance, or not on your balance sheet, on your income statement,
Sure.
and and so invest in that, take care of that, encourage that, strengthen
Mhm.
that human capital,
Mhm.
whether it's through training and yeah, or education and courses, and but also in through community, creating community, and creating those bonds, because that's how they'll thrive.
That the word capital I don't particularly like. I'm tempted at times to substitute in the word collaboration, but
Mm.
the capital really is sort of it smacks of an insipid, bottom line profit, and the person as the tool, but in actual fact, it's the notion of potential and promise. The promise that word capital holds is what distinguishes it for me. So,
Yeah.
in summary, really, what problems do you hope to solve for people endeavoring to reach their potential in the workspace? Uh, Convince me that I should have you in to help me get on the right track. I've lost my way.
You've lost your way. Um, if you've lost your way, I would ask you why you think you lost your way, and what do you feel is missing. And
Mhm.
and if you were to say to me, oh, I just don't feel like I fit in, or that I belong, or that we're collaborating well, that I'm getting along with my colleagues, that we have this culture that really encourages this, I would say,
Mhm.
let me help you. Uh, let us do some art together. Let us do some of these activities together, and rebuild the trust, and rebuild that curiosity, and create the space so that we can have those connections, and create this knowledge sharing culture, so that people trust and respect each other, and are brave and courageous enough to ask the difficult questions. And sometimes it's not even difficult questions. Honestly, it's just the question that's in the back of their head, that they're
Yeah. Yeah.
afraid of looking ashamed or embarrassed, that they don't know the answer.
Mhm.
Nobody needs to be ashamed or embarrassed,
Mhm.
because they don't know the answer to something. There's so much research and things that are being done now. It's impossible to keep up. So there's no shame in asking a question. The shame is in not asking the question. And so, yeah, so create that safe space where it's okay to not know the answer, and to ask, and to find out.
So that RKM strikes me as the ideal route to remaining human and developing our own agency in a world that is being overtaken or overrun by dependence on screens and dependence on these algorithms with AI. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
do you do any work in actual education spaces?
Um, no, I haven't. It's all been in corporate or not-for-profit NGO
Mhm.
space. It's not been in education. So,
And would you see a space for it in the future as we go further down that rabbit hole with AI?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do know people that are doing similar work in the education sector.
Space, yeah.
It's just not something that I've
that, that
been
you've gone,
doing.
you've
Yeah, that
gone, yeah, yeah.
gone.
But as a concept, it's wonderful to introduce it to the handshake audience, be it in the corporate world or the education world.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love the idea also of that lifelong learning. We're forever learning, we're
Yeah,
forever changing and growing. And what you put out, the ripple effect of what you put out, it's part of the magic because you do not know where it's going to finish.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I have people all the time that reach out to me on LinkedIn, and go, "Oh, I've been following you for ages, and I love what you're doing." And I have no idea who they were, who they are, how they've even found me, but it means a lot to find out that what I'm doing has inspired them in their own
Fine.
lives in some way. So whether it's personally or professionally. So yeah, you
So
never know.
would you like to share your contact details here so that people will know where to find you and to delve deeper into your writings and your blogs, etc., around this whole thing of RKM?
Sure. The easiest way might be just to go to my website. So radicalkm.com. And then, but yeah, or find me on LinkedIn, Stephanie Barnes. I think my LinkedIn username is Stephanie A. Barnes. So if you go linkedin.com/Stephanie A. Barnes, yeah, and connect to me there. My phone number and stuff is on the web page and email address. So I won't list them here, but yeah, the URL radicalkm.com or LinkedIn is a good way to reach out and get in touch.
And have you any course upcoming now before Christmas?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I do have a little asynchronous online course that people can do. It's a little freebie, introduction to Radical KM. It takes a couple of hours to do, and so they can do that. So I'm hoping for some stuff in the new year. But I do more work I don't do a lot of publicly open stuff.
Yes.
I do more work with organizations, so that they'll get 6 people together, 12 people, usually between 6 and 12. I can do bigger or smaller, but usually between 6 and 12, and do something in-house for them. And then they have this little community of people that have been through the training, been through the process, and they can support each other as they take it out across the rest of the organization, kind of a train the trainer kind of approach to it. So, and I've found that works really nicely. So
it's a good starting point to take that free little course that you have. It's a good taster and move from there.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, as always, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. It fascinates me, the whole thing. And I think as we go further and further down that technological route, your business will only thrive because people will realize that we cannot survive without celebrating our uniqueness and celebrating that soul stuff that defines us as humans.
Yes. Celebrate our humanity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And we'll have many more. Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Thank you.